There was an evil version of myself that would kind of come out at random moments. He would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as a detective. I'd be like solving murders that I'm committing myself.
On April 16th, 2026, the singer David was arrested in connection to the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. 4 days later, prosecutors charged him with first-degree murder, continuous abuse of a child, and unlawful mutilation of human remains. And to the world's surprise, David pleaded not guilty to all charges. His next major court date is July 21st, 2026. This will be a multi-day preliminary hearing where a judge will decide whether prosecutors have enough evidence to actually move this case forward to trial. On the other end, prosecutors are claiming they have over 40 terabytes worth of evidence that work against David's favor. And we will go through everything prosecutors claim David did. But beyond the dozens of thousands of gigabytes worth of evidence that prosecutors are about to present to the world, there's a mountain of deranged details that the internet have gone back and decoded the second David was arrested. And because of that, this case has become a lot darker than simply what prosecutors say happened behind closed doors. It's also about the evidence that David may have left behind, and the trail of evidence he may have openly produced for his own audience to eventually find. From the music, to the visuals, to the lyrics, to the social media activity, the signs of David's connection to Celeste and his alleged murder of her may have been hidden in plain sight this entire time. So before this case moves any closer to trial, we gotta go all the way back to the beginning. From an early age, there weren't many activities or hobbies in the real world that resonated with David. His parents definitely tried to get him into music at an early age, but nothing stuck. He would pursue a new form of music all throughout his early years as a kid, but would quickly quit each one.
She put me into piano lessons when I was 7, and then I quit that after a week. She was like, okay, I'm not gonna pay for it if you don't like it. Quit that. She put me in a church choir when I was 8. Quit that, and then I was in middle school band when I was in 7th grade.
Aside from understanding that nothing really stuck with David on a musical level when he was a child, we also know that for a decent chunk of David's key developmental years, he was actually isolated in a homeschool program.
Transitioning from public school to homeschool was tragic.
The first 2 years was tragic.
Tragic?
I was asking to go back to school almost every day. My brother too.
Was the decision to move from public schooling to homeschooling a difficult one?
It was, and it wasn't mine, it was my parents.
So there's 2 different types of homeschooling in America. There's like group homeschooling, where it's parents that don't want their kids to be in public school environments, but they still want them to be in social groups. So they have you have homeschool kids that meet once a week at a specific place, and they play like extracurricular activities like basketball and stuff like that, so they can socialize, and they do the work on paper. And then there's a second homeschooling where it's just strictly on computer. That's what I did.
Now, to be clear, obviously homeschooling in and of itself does not cause harmful or violent tendencies and behavior. Many homeschool kids are healthy, social, and later well-adjusted within society. But in David's case, with the isolation that his particular situation brought forth, the first red flag should have been the lack of consistent social connection, extracurricular activities, and no real-life peer-to-peer relationships. At the very least, this is what likely led David spending more time in online spaces that soon in this video you'll see became very unhealthy and inappropriate for someone of his age. And the deranged online activity that David would later pursue could have been a rebellious response to the sheltered upbringing he was faced with. Before the homeschooling, at least by the way that David described it in interviews, it seems like his parents had a pretty intense control over the content and music that he would consume.
Everything we played in the house music-wise was just Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, gospel music, like classical stuff, instrumentals only. Like, we didn't listen to any other music. There was no like Lady Gaga and all the popular artists everybody was listening to. We never could listen to that because my parents just wouldn't let us. It was just like straight classical stuff. It was literally nothing. It was all gospel and like classical, Mozart, Bach, like all that kind of stuff. Because my parents wanted me to be really smart. They never like talked about college or anything like that, but they always wanted me to be very intellectual, very put together, have an idea of what I'm doing, but they never like listened to music like that at all.
In response to this, David states that he would later sneak around with an iPod Touch, where he'd be able to download more modern music that kids his age were listening to.
Did your parents put sort of a cap on what you could and couldn't listen to in the
Nah,
house?
I was sneaking
It wasn't
around.
like that.
I had this little iPod. I used to sneak. I got it with me right now too. I still got these. I used to
Oh
sneak around with the
my
iPod
God.
Touch. I used to sneak around with the iPod Touch and download things off iTunes and stuff like that.
Now, what I find interesting is the fact that David's parents seem to be quite strict in terms of the music he would consume at an early age, but a couple years later, you'll see shortly in this video, he would seem to have free reins to explore whatever he wanted in the darkest corners of the internet. And while David's parents were unsuccessful at getting him to music-related extracurricular activities at an early age, David himself would initially end up gravitating towards music-adjacent art forms, you could say, stuff like poetry. And he also early on became enthralled with video games and anime, but pay attention to what exactly stood out to him and what he liked about anime in particular.
Yeah, ever since I was young, I really just liked anime, gaming, and poetry. That's it. I remember reading my first manga when I was in 5th grade. Dragon Ball, Tokyo Ghoul, and see these fantasy characters with powers and all that. That weren't superheroes, and that inspired me to start writing and write my own stories about them.
So he liked how these characters, they had power, but they weren't necessarily heroes. They weren't doing good in these stories. And consuming anime actually inspired David to write fictional stories of his own. Now, before he was homeschooled, David was actually in public school, and he recalls observing his classmates, analyzing their characteristics, and creating stories where the characters were actually based off real people in his school that he was observing.
At school, before I was homeschooled, like middle school, elementary, I would look at these kids, like at cafeteria, at lunch was like my playground, like my brain's playground. Like there's so many different kids and they're all doing something different. I would just sit there and I'm a people watcher. I would just inspect them and like write about them and stuff like that. And I kind of brought these characters to life that were inspired by my classmates. So every time I would write like a short story, I'd have these different classmates in these stories and they would never know. It's like different names and everything, but they were inspired by my classmates.
So you can see from an early age, David almost treated people more like a case to study and observe, or even control, instead of treating them like equals that he was supposed to emotionally connect with. And it's possible that this was due to the way that David was treated early on. David in interviews claims that from an early age, he was actually bullied before he eventually started getting homeschooled.
I hated New York at that point. Like,
Why did you
I didn't
hate
like
it?
my school. I was at a
'cause
private
you see-
school, and they treated me so horribly, dude.
Why?
It was insane. I don't know. All the teachers had it out for me. My little brother could testify to that too. Dude, they just had it out for me all the time. I don't know what it was. I would just do nothing to nobody, and the teachers would just pick on me and bully me for no reason, bro. I wanted to leave that place so bad.
David's family would eventually move from New York to Houston, where he would begin to have a better social life at school. But like I mentioned before, that would quickly come to a halt when his parents would decide to have David put in a homeschooled program. And this was an eye-opening period in David's life, because all the friends that he felt like he had at this new school suddenly stopped talking to him once he left.
I thought I had a lot of friends in middle school. And then after being homeschooled, nobody's hitting me up. Nobody's asking me, like, where am I at? Why am I not coming to school today? It made me question, like, what is a real friend? And do I have any of those as well? Especially when I was transitioning from public school to homeschooling and nobody, like, hit me up on Snapchat when I was, like, streaking everybody. My Snap score was, like, 250,000, bro.
And nobody hits you back?
Nobody, dude.
What the
That's what I'm saying. Like, nobody, like, who, you not at school? Where'd you go, Dave? Like, nobody. Like, dude, did I really have friends? And you start to question things.
Oh,
like,
totally.
about your everyday life. It's like, who's really there for you at the end?
I mean, dude, homeschooling really takes a toll on a kid. Like,
Isolation.
yeah, and there's outlets like I made a couple friends now that were homeschooled, but they had like these groups that they would go to like bi-weekly and just to socialize. But I didn't have that.
Now, as you saw there, David mentioned that he frequently used Snapchat. Throughout his teenage years, he's watching his previous school peers experience what it's like being a normal teenager. falling in love, having relationships, going to school, hanging out with friends. Meanwhile, David's on the sidelines, feeling forgotten, feeling abandoned, and not having the opportunity to build new social connections and make new friends. And David would later make it very obvious that this was a major dark hole within his life. He would constantly post on TikTok about the effects that being homeschooled had on him during those teenage years. Not being able to experience any school dances, not being able to properly express his feelings, having no social life for 5 years. We also have to remember that this is all what David is saying. This is all how he's recounting his own story. And you'll see later in this video, if you haven't already, he has a strong habit of portraying real human beings as characters in these fantasy worlds. So before we jump to any conclusions on how this supposed homeschooled isolation could have affected David, don't toss it out of the realm of possibilities that, just like the stories he was writing about his classmates on the playground, he may have been overly romanticizing or creating fiction around his own life and his own upbringing as well. But one thing that David said about being homeschooled that is definitely true is that homeschooling and being on social media 24/7 is not a good mix.
Especially being homeschooled, not having a social life, right? So I'm on the game, I'm talking to all these random people, and they're talking to me about their life problems, you know, using video games to escape the real world as much as I am, and then living my life vicariously through them and like writing songs about their lives. I would go on Discord and I would go on Fortnite and I would go on like squad fills and I just let people talk to me and just tell me about their lives. Cause like most of these people that play video games the same way I do, they're going to it as an escape. So I was just being an open door and an open outlet for like my peers and my friends to kind of just like vent to me about different things in their like personal lives and stuff like that. And I'm like 15, 14 at this time, so I don't know how to like be a therapist, right? But it's like I'm taking this information and all these different people talking to me about different like problems and situations. I'm like, wow, this is really what humans are like. Like these are humans.
So as you can see, David in these key years was not building connections with other human beings in the traditional manner. While most kids are experiencing real human connection in the physical form, David began getting closest to people who only existed to him behind a computer screen, adopting a parasocial relationship where he listened to their stories from an observational standpoint, building worlds in his own head out of their lived experiences, rather than building his own world with lived experiences that were shared with other humans. His entire life took place behind a computer screen. The connections he built, the activities he became passionate about, all of his interests were online.
I played Fortnite from 2017 to 2021. The game came out in 2017. I was one of the first people to ever play the game. My goal on Fortnite.
You were the first person? How?
I had like this small group of friends that would literally spend 8 hours a day looking for the newest games that were released on PlayStation.
Okay.
And I was playing Fortnite Season 1, like had all the passes, everything.
Okay.
So I played that game. I became a YouTuber. I was playing Call of Duty, Fortnite, all these different type of games. To try to become like the biggest next thing, streamer, Kai Cenat, everything.
Did anyone care?
No.
Okay.
200 views my first video.
What? That's a lot.
A steady 60 after.
David would begin to slowly build a small audience of people interested in watching his Fortnite gameplay. This would actually be how he fully got into music, because the Fortnite montages that he would post on YouTube would include background music that was owned by major record labels. They would end up copyright striking him, so his mom encouraged him to actually make music of his own to overlay his Fortnite montages with. That's where he would begin recording music in his bedroom closet.
I wanted to be a professional Fortnite player at first, and then I got copyright strikes. I lost all my money. I told my mom about it, and she was like, make your own music. Next day, happened in my sister's closet with my iPhone and some earbuds, made my first song called Runaway. After that, my Fortnite peers started posting in their montages, getting some notoriety in the Fortnite community, and it took off.
Did you make music before?
Nah, not ever.
But aside from discovering his love of music through his online gaming, it would be that same video game that would lead David to discover something much darker. Prosecutors actually believe David met Celeste in January of 2022 when she was just 11, all from playing Fortnite together. And there are people online who claim to have been in the same game rooms as David and Celeste when they first met, and the timelines that these individuals reveal align perfectly with what prosecutors have laid out so far.
So before David was David, he used to go by the name Chronic Ant.
24 hours in the woods with Chronic Ant.
Chronic Ant was a really good Fortnite player.
Oh wait, hey.
When Celeste was first identified, I had came across some comments that said that they knew David, they used to play the game with him, and he used to always have his girl around. Looking back on everything now, they 100% think that that was Celeste.
This sickens me, dude. I was in a zone wars with both of them, and thought the little girl in the lobby was someone's sister on the game. I always had a weird feeling about him. I didn't even know he was David.
I'm trying to find a clip of me, Celeste, and David in a call. I knew I should have said something, bro. I thought he was just being normal. We were queuing up in Fortnite with random people, then we queued up with Celeste. At first, it was normal. Like 3 months go by, and I notice it's getting weird. Like, how does he know her entire story? I'm thinking he's just being nice to this kid like a brother. It got weirder every time we would play together. Eventually, he did his own thing.
I was in a lobby while she was there, and that was only one time. I assumed it was someone's sister. Thinking of everything makes more sense now.
Do you remember anything weird about the conversation? Do you remember her username?
I don't remember her username, but there wasn't any weird vibes. We were playing Zone Wars, and she'd just make little comments like everyone while playing. But Ant would joke about SA all the time, and other weird things like sibling around then.
And you're sure it was her?
100%. Couldn't have been anyone else.
Yo, I'm watching the live right now, but I just want to say this because me and my friend are trying to recall everything. We were all in a Fortnite team called Chronic, which is where I met him. He met her in like 2021 through Fortnite, I'm pretty sure. And then he made her get Discord. Everyone in the team knew about her, and he would joke about it and brush it off every time it got mentioned. That's all I personally know, but my friend Pistol knows more because they talked way more. She would literally say he her, but then follow it up with a joke. So I don't know if she was being for real or not. He was also just a weirdo, to be honest. He used to send in group chats.
If everything that they alleged was true, David was 15 years old and Celeste was 10.
While David's main online interest was video games, Fortnite in particular, this obviously being the medium where many people believe he met Celeste through when she was just 11 years old, his internet activity would take much darker turns as he got older. And if nothing yet in this video was alarming to you, this most definitely should be. This is a message from David in his own Discord group where he admits to watching gore to quote-unquote disconnect the part of his brain that feels empathy to the wrong things. For the sake of censorship on this platform, in very simple terms, you can kind of think of gore as graphic, violent content to the highest degree possible. And what David's basically saying here is that he watches these type of horrifying videos to numb himself emotionally because he feels like he feels overly sympathetic or has too much emotional concern for the quote-unquote wrong things. And he says it's gotten to a point where he laughs at this violent content. Got to a point where he doesn't even cringe when he sees it. It all started when he was just 14 years old and stumbled across a cartel execution video on Reddit. Remember, this was, as David describes it himself, an isolated child with too much time on his hands, not enough friends or social connections, and free reign access to the internet. The only thing I could think of to answer that previous question as to why his parents controlled the music he listened to but not the content he consumed online is because it's very possible they didn't fully understand the magnitude of vulgarity, violence, depravity that can be found on the internet. And because of that, they may have thought it was just a harmless tool that David used to educate himself in his homeschooling program, or make friends in his spare time, or develop new interests and hobbies like video games. I don't assume that his parents would have ever thought that As David put it in these Discord messages, he would become addicted to watching gore videos. And about 2 to 3 years after David discovered this cartel execution, which led him down a rabbit hole of graphic content, he would begin to form a friendship with a then 11-year-old Celeste. Even Celeste's old school teacher recounts this timeline pretty accurately, emphasizing that she met the singer in the same place David met most of his friends at the time: social media.
That's her in my classroom in front of this poster right here. I got a picture on TMZ of this other kid exchanging stuff with the rapper who we alleged did this stuff. He's also in my classroom.
Wait, how long ago was this?
We all just found out yesterday who it was, but she's been missing since I taught her. So when I taught her, she met this dude on social media. He was a rapper in LA. He came and got her. She ran away from home. She was gone for like a month. The cops found her in Hollywood, brought her back to our school. She came back to our school, kind of told people this story. She disappeared again in May of that year, May of 2024. That's when her friends told me what happened, that it was this rapper, that they were like blackmailing him, all of this stuff. And then I found out yesterday that she's now dead in that rapper's car. You want to know how they met? Social media.
Around the time that David met Celeste online, he also created an alter ego for himself. A new character by the name of Atami, which means pain in Japanese. Remember that during his brief time attending private school, David would create characters out of the different students in his class. And by the time he was homeschooled, he would listen to the life stories of people that he met online and live vicariously through them. Now he was seemingly segmenting different aspects of his personalities into characters of their own. And once he developed his career in music, he would actually use these different characters in the visuals of his music videos.
I have this alter ego named Atami, which means pain in Japanese, and I'm heavily inspired by like anime and stuff like that. But that character that's in the music videos I make now was actually an idea that I had years before music even started, when I was writing my first comic book. And it was this detective that would solve his own crime. So he was the good guy by day, and then at night he'd kind of transform into this alter ego and then commit crimes he'd solved the morning of. Big part of that manga was an evil version of me, an agent of chaos and kind of my alter ego. And there was an evil version of myself that would kind of come out at random moments, kind of like Fight Club with Tyler Durden. And he would commit the crimes that I would have to solve as the detective. So like when I was as the detective, I'd be like solving murders that I'm committing myself.
David would incorporate this Atami character into his music, into his visuals, and would eventually catch his big break with his 2022 viral hit, Romantic Homicide. The music video would be based off his Atami character, and it would ironically released on September 7th, Celeste's birthday. Don't forget that 2022, the year that David caught his big break, is the same year prosecutors believe he actually met Celeste. Now, imagine what this sudden stardom does to a child who claims he was isolated and chronically online for most of his teenage years. He now has the world by his fingertips, the ability to travel, make money via his music, make connections just off the strength of his artistry, very few people to answer to or say no to. This 17-year-old who had spent most of his teenage years alone, online, addicted to gore, creating violent characters of himself, now had access to all this money, power, control, and no one to answer to. In fact, it was his mother, the same individual who tried to shelter David, to influence him in a positive way. She was the one who indirectly inspired David to release his breakout single, Romantic Homicide. David states that it was her utter disgust of the subject matter within that song, talking about killing off a love interest, that would prompt him to release it, because he knew if it was something that disgusted her, the general public would probably be so enthralled by the shock value that they would completely eat it up.
Like when I used to get up and get dressed for school in the morning, I put on this cool fit. She would like, take that off, put on a suit or something like that, you know? I knew it was cool if she hated it. I played it for her in the car, and she was like, David, this song is too violent. You're talking about killing people in your music? No, not my son. And I was like, wait, I might be onto something, bro. So I dropped it right after that. And it went crazy. TikTok, viral, 1 million views overnight. I was like, oh yeah, we cooking, boy. We cooking, boy. So right at that moment, I was like, my mom has done it again. Because if she said, oh, because I was already skeptical about the song when I made it. Like, I was like, okay, maybe it's just too dark, I don't know what I'm doing. I held on to it for a minute until I decided to play it for my mom, and she hated it, and that was my cue. That was the you go do it. So after that, it was just like, it was history, man.
Now let's fast forward a couple years. Prosecutors believe David started abusing Celeste in September of 2023, about a year and a half after they actually met online. By February of 2024, her parents would report her as a missing person, and because she had allegedly been texting David, LAPD would show up at his house around this time period asking if David knew about her whereabouts. They would even find a yearbook picture of Celeste on David's phone, and this is what I find most disturbing, because if you look for Celeste's yearbook photos online, you get pictures like this. Just by these pictures alone, you should know that as a 16, 17, maybe now even 18-year-old individual, you should have no business being friends with, or even worse, abusing a person who looks this young and who was this young. So knowing David may have had these pictures on his phone, even if he did not know her age at the time, which is what he allegedly told the LAPD when they did a wellness check at his house, seeing that she looked this young in physical appearance should have been more than enough to keep an 18-year-old far, far away from her. And it gets even worse when we dig into what David was reposting onto TikTok during this time period. This is a scene from the movie American Psycho, where this character, who was a serial killer, lures a woman into his home and takes her life. The caption of this TikTok is, "Me after hearing about her past with other boys. I'm jealous and utterly disgusted by her actions." He also posted this about a month before the LAPD would come to his house to do a wellness check because Celeste was a missing person. And it said, "Was I too controlling, or did I just want to be respected? Was I too controlling, or did I just ask for reassurance? Did I just care about you? Was I just concerned for your safety? Is it because I loved too hard, or were you just out late drunk, or I didn't want to see you hurt, or did I not want to get cheated on you again? Just because I care about you doesn't make me controlling." Now, it's just interesting to look at stuff like this when we know David's past, when we know that for a long time he was observing other people's relationships without having any of his own, without understanding how human connection fully works. But now, again, he's shot into superstardom seemingly overnight. It makes it a lot easier for him to have the ability to be this controlling and for no one to stop him. These reposts would only get more disturbing, like this one. Me watching her scream after I poured boiling water on her after she told a boy happy birthday because why you happy that he made it another year? Or this one, me after running over every guy who's ever looked at her. Sitting there realizing I'm a really bad person sometimes, even though I genuinely love with all my heart, there's a really bad part of me that ruins everything. How life feels when you aren't dating a lying HOE. My biggest fear in a relationship is them having to see me in an episode where I can't help them right away, when I'm too depressed to get out of bed, when I start getting mad at everything, when I'm just not acting like the version of me that they know. So from a lot of these reposts, you can already see David had some insecurities about who he was, a part of himself that he was hiding from his loved ones, a darker side, very intense issues of jealousy, and worst of all, violent thoughts if he couldn't control the women he loved. And as you dig deeper into the content he was reposting on TikTok, it becomes more apparent that David most definitely had control issues, or at least tried to portray himself as having control issues. This is a list he reposted of things he considers to be cheating in a relationship. If his romantic interest would complain to him about another person, if they would seek relationships with someone they find attractive, being touchy with someone else. I'm not going to go through the whole list, and if you were just looking at this at face value, you might think, all right, maybe this individual is a little bit overly protective, but a lot of these things are generally standard for what you'd expect from your partner in a relationship. But when you combine this with all the more violent content he would repost about what could potentially happen if he catches his significant other cheating, or if she uncovers the darker side of him, at that point it paints a much more sinister story. And when you look at the repost that came allegedly from Celeste's TikTok account, it also presents some content that may raise some eyebrows now that we know the dark fate that her interactions with David left her with. Now, I want to emphasize this is alleged. It comes from a Redditor who claims to have compiled all of Celeste's old TikTok reposts. And as you can see, you have stuff like this, where it says, POV, my mom after watching crime documentaries or the news. Anybody else's parent? Hashtag worried parent. So in 2024 here, she's reposting stuff about parents who were overly worried. Now, similar to the repost we saw from David, Celeste would also post TikToks about the violent measures that jealous partners would go through in relationships. This one to me is the saddest of all, where it says, try not to cry going home after being with the love of my life. This TikTok was originally posted in January of 2024, and we know that over the next couple months after this TikTok was posted, Celeste would run away from her home several times to live with and travel with this man 5-6 years older than her, who convinced this child that they were in a relationship together. This one was also incredibly sad. She reposted, when my card declines at therapy, so they bring out old pictures of when our family was actually a family. Now this one is interesting because around the same time, David would actually post a TikTok on his own account that said, when my card declines in therapy, and they bring in that one Hello Kitty girl I met back in 2021. Many people believe that this was in reference to Celeste because both of them shared a love for Hello Kitty. But beyond this, the TikTok that Celeste reposted was quite sad for the reason that we know she likely did not have the best relationship with her family, especially closer to the end of her life. We know she was constantly running away, hiding the fact that she was with David from her parents. And there were a lot of mixed narratives on Celeste's relationship with her parents and who was really out there protecting her, making sure that she was safe. AKA, how did she end up living with and traveling with an 18, 19-year-old famous singer when she was just 13? Well, the owner of the house that David's management team was renting, the very same house that prosecutors believe David took Celeste's life in, that homeowner had actually hired a private investigator to get some more answers as to what really went down in the situation and who this alleged murderer was that was living in and renting out their house, right? And the private investigator, his name is Steve Fisher, he actually believes that several of Celeste's family members had actually been to that rental house that David was living in. That her family was well aware that the constant running away that Celeste was doing, it was to go and live with and be with David. And if that's the case, you have to ask yourself, could the reason that David have conducted this horrible murder in the first place be because he knew not only how much manipulation and power he possessed over this child, but also how little the people around her, her family members, actually cared about her, to the point where he thought he can be so reckless with her remains to just leave them in a car that belonged to him on the side of the road right next to his house. Maybe David knew about the turbulent relationship that Celeste had with her family and that no one was really out there to keep her safe.
Do you think the family is as quiet as they are because they knew who David was and they knew who she was going to, and you don't really see too much of an intervention between them?
I mean, yes. I have proof that family members have been to that rental house before, have been with David and Celeste.
Wait, her family has been to his house?
Family members. Listen, one of the first things I put down in this case was a build. We know that David and Celeste were at Six Flags on a certain date, and we found a Build-A-Bear certificate from the Build-A-Bear place in Six Flags in her cousin's name at the house. You know, and so it's like, wait a minute. So she wasn't really missing. You know what? You want to know, in my opinion, what the missing persons report was about? It was to cover their ass so CPS didn't come in and say, "Hey, she's not going to school. What's up?" If she's a missing person, you say she's not going to the school because she's a missing person. Then you don't have CPS in your life at that moment. Listen, I sympathize. I know that I know that they're grieving. I know they lost a daughter, but goddamn, she shouldn't have been allowed to be. She was gone a year and a half, man. A year and a half. Like, somebody should have said, maybe we shouldn't be letting Celeste live her own life like this.
Now, it's also important to note that while Celeste's mother had allegedly done interviews with TMZ claiming that she knew Celeste had a boyfriend named David, while Celeste's brother had allegedly spoken to the press claiming that the last time he saw his sister was when David picked her up to quote-unquote go to a movie and she never returned, Celeste's father actually had a different story. He claims that he's never heard of a guy named David, never met a guy named David, knew nothing about the man who allegedly took his daughter's life.
There's really no question that Celeste Rivas Hernandez did not live the life of a typical 14-year-old girl before she was brutally killed and dismembered, allegedly at the hands of adult boyfriend singer David. Celeste had been reported missing by her parents in February of 2024 and again in April. After the February report, Riverside County Sheriff deputies apparently found David's number in Celeste's phone records, and she returned home 2 days later. Now, Celeste's parents reportedly took her phone away after that February report, but apparently that didn't stop David from allegedly reaching out to this young girl, because prosecutors claim that David was able to get back in contact with her after allegedly paying one of her young classmates $1,000 to give her a cell phone that he purchased for her. And she vanished again, allegedly traveling on the road with David as a couple to Las Vegas and London, Texas, where his family lived. And Celeste's family has kept a very low profile ever since her decomposing body turned up allegedly in David's Tesla back in September, understandably so. But after David was arrested, they made an appearance at this first court date, but decided not to speak to the public. Their silence has reportedly allowed rumors to spread throughout their hometown that David was giving the family funds. And Celeste's father addressed those rumors today, broke his silence. Jesus Rivera told TMZ through his attorney Patrick Steinfeld, quote, "I never had any contact with this guy, and we haven't received any money from him or anyone in his family."
Now, beyond whether Celeste's family knew David, whether David's family knew Celeste, I want to dig a little bit deeper into the characters that David was creating for himself. A lot of David's earlier music was actually based off of stories that he would hear from his friends that he made online, from their experiences, the same way that when he was a kid in school, he would write stories and use his classmates and their personas as characters in the story. But as David got famous, as he got to travel the world, have real connections with real humans, he was able to start writing music from his own lens, his own perspective, his own lived experiences. And this is when he started segmenting his personality into even more personas, more characters.
I got me as the artist, David, D4vd, Itami, which is the antagonist. He wears the blindfold. My gaming character is coming soon. He is like the one that's super tech savvy and stuff like that. And then my social media persona, which is also being built out as we speak. And that's the 4.
He constructed an entire identity architecture around himself with those 4 defined personas: David the artist, Itami the antagonist, a gaming persona, and a social media persona, none of which were David Anthony Burke. The actual self was not among them. What researchers describe as identity diffusion, where the boundary between constructed persona and authentic self becomes genuinely unclear, appears to be happening here. The masks were not overlaid on a stable self, they may have become the primary mode of self-experience. So David from early on learned how to switch between characters. In private, he could be this antisocial kid with dark fantasies. In interviews, he could sound smart and sophisticated. And on TikTok, he could do his best to be relatable and goofy to his audience. That ability to switch became something that we now potentially know might have helped him deal with the consequences of his future actions.
And this is what makes David's moves after prosecutors believe he took Celeste's life even more chilling. In a previous video, I went through the timeline with you guys, starting from the moment that prosecutors believe David took Celeste's life, all the way up to about a week and a half later where they believe that he actually mutilated her remains. And then we took a look at what came after those remains were placed in David's trunk. And you can see that from the moment on April 23rd, 2025, that prosecutors believe he took Celeste's life, David goes on an entire press tour for an album that he dropped just 2 days after the date that they believe Celeste was murdered. He was doing interviews, he was active on social media, he was doing concert performances, and aside from one slip-up where he broke down in tears during a live performance of a certain song, David seemed happier and more active than ever. He would then go on to embark on a whole world tour throughout the summer, while Celeste's remains were in his car. There was even a time where David was live streaming with friends and they noticed a pungent smell in his house. Many people now believe that this was the smell of a decaying body in David's Tesla. But in the clip, you see David so nonchalantly play it off as if he had just went to the bathroom and that's what the smell was from.
Oh wait, you're empty out my bills for me.
Can you put this in the bag too?
Unless you don't mind. I have a lot of bills.
Can you put... you, bro. I'm looking at your packing it, bro. Go f*** yourself. I don't even get paid, guys. I'm not even getting paid for this bullshit, bro. This, bro. F*** all y'all, dead ass.
Oh. Now, do we make up? Yeah.
ABC. Oh
They didn't
yes,
expose
I
you?
apologize in advance for the way my bathroom smelled. I took a like 2 hours ago.
I don't care, I just took it.
Another one? Tight shit. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
Yo, I had to go.
The fact that David was able to hide this secret so easily, was able to go on and work hours and hours every single day, traveling nonstop, with something like this weighing on his conscience, and he's playing it off like everything's fine, I definitely think it speaks volumes to how he segmented the different aspects of his identity and was able to flip them on and off like a light switch at any given time. The signs were here all along. The dark side of David, that was displayed through his persona, Atami, in the music videos, in the reposts on TikTok, in the life stories that he would tell in his interviews, in the bloody t-shirts that he was selling on his website, in the tour props that he brought out at his live shows like the casket. This may have not just been an alter ego. These may have been the signs that there was a spirit inside David that would drive him to commit such a disgusting act. But simultaneously, he can mask it so well because, like he said in that interview clip I just played, he compartmentalized his personality to where he can turn on the persona of David the quote-unquote artist at the flick of a switch. David also never had relationships of his own when he grew up as a teenager. This might explain the control issues, the jealousy issues that he had. And as far as why he thought he could get away with such a disgusting crime if he was the one who truly murdered Celeste, well, look at how all the people around that young child neglected her, failed her, didn't give her the proper attention she deserved to keep her safe. She ran away multiple times from her home. She's seen spotted on live streams with David, at concerts with David, allegedly touring around the world with David. If David was able to get this child to the point where she can leave her home multiple times, travel hours and hours to his house, and then bring her across the world traveling as he's working on his music, and that didn't raise any eyebrows within Celeste's inner circle amongst her family members, then David probably thought there was no one out there fighting for this young girl hard enough to the point where they would even find her in the trunk of his Tesla. If she can run away all these times from her family's home and into his arms, he probably thought there's no way they would know where to look if she just never came back home. Now, as far as the motive David had for taking Celeste's life, prosecutors believe that they were arguing. Celeste was upset that David was talking to other girls, and she threatened to come forth and expose to the media, to the world, to police, that David had been engaging in activities with a minor. And what's disturbing is that if this is really the case and, they were fighting back and forth, leading Celeste to threaten to expose David and then David eventually taking her life, it's insane to then go back and listen to a conversation allegedly between Celeste and David that was supposed to appear as an interlude on one of David's songs. In it, you can see Celeste allegedly pleading with David, asking why he doesn't hold her hand anymore, trying to apologize to him for what she did wrong and make amends in this relationship that David completely manipulated this child into being in.
I sound so stupid right now, but I've been so selfish and I can't stop thinking about you and what I did and how it's affecting everything. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I really am sorry. I tried. You're special, David. I got a question.
What's the question?
Why don't you hold my hands anymore?
Oh, here we go again, bro.
Nah, I'm so serious.
Bro,
I'm so serious. Like,
all right, continue.
I haven't held your hand.
Like,
huge.
sorry.
Like, you're not funny. I swear you're not funny.
I'm done.
Alright, let me think.
But so the time.
It could have been yesterday. It could have been
yesterday. Wow, yeah. I'm glad you remember that. I'm glad.
Period.
Ew, I hate when you say period, man. All right. I got a question for you now.
Okay.
Why do you think we met?
Have you ever heard of the invisible strength theory?
Oh yeah.
Exactly that. So basically, we met because we were supposed to meet.
Okay.
And we're connected because we're supposed to be connected. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like that, I loved you before I existed and I love you even when I die.
Word.
Yes.
Word. Okay.
But yeah, it's weird, it's strange, it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
So don't leave me.
No, you got it.
Okay.
You got it.
All right. I love you. You're the one calling my phone.
You been there, been there.
Calling me.
Been there.
Please go away.
Been there.
Why are you calling me?
Been
Why are
there,
you calling me? Calling me. Say sorry. I didn't want to go and change the narrative and say something completely different. You gotta figure whatever you got going on. Figure that out. Baby.
Now in that clip, you can hear vocals of someone singing, "You've been dead, you've been dead." All of it's deeply disturbing, and you can hear the manipulation in the conversation. This is a child apologizing to a grown adult for being selfish. I want to say allegedly, because we don't know 100% that this audio does come from Celeste and David. But speaking of manipulation, aside from David's manipulative, controlling behavior in romantic relationships potentially being revealed in his TikTok activity, one of the moderators of his old Discord would come forth with what's allegedly his actual YouTube activity. The searches, the videos he was watching. And if this person truly had access to David's YouTube accounts, and this was really the content he was consuming while trying to hide not just the relationship he was having with this minor, but also the murder he would later allegedly conduct, this could be the darkest of it all. Their post would read, "Hey, my name is Will. Before anything, I would like to preface that I obtained these accounts from David himself and did not do any illegal activities to gain access to them. I figure now would be a more appropriate time to post these haunting and disturbing pieces of information for the media and the general public who would never got the chance to have seen these things. I believe that this is very useful for the public. The facade David played all throughout my time of knowing him surprises me greatly, and I'm very sad that he has gone down this terrible path. I only wish justice for the poor girls he has hurt and ultimately destroyed lives of. And to the family of Celeste, Rivas, Hernandez, I truly wish only the best for your family and everyone close. Thank you, and may God bless you all." So the first thing that David had allegedly watched on YouTube was this video of a missing children's report in Virginia. This video was posted in August of 2025, which is about 4 months before prosecutors believed David had taken Celeste's life, and just about 1 month before her remains were found in a Tesla that belonged to David. What's deeply disturbing about this is that the video itself unpacks how a lot of child abductions go viral on TikTok, and that specifically the mass abduction allegations that were taking place in Virginia that were unpacked in the video that David was allegedly watching weren't actually true. They didn't actually take place. So break that down. Months after David was accused of taking Celeste's life, he's allegedly looking up on YouTube viral child abduction rumors that weren't actually true, potentially attempting to cover his tracks and build up his case if Celeste's body was ever found. Another thing David was allegedly watching on YouTube was a video called How to Log Birth Control Method on Flow Period Tracker. This is very disturbing because we know there were a lot of rumors that before Celeste's life was taken, she may have actually been pregnant. Prosecutors themselves claimed that the reason why they believed David was incentivized to take her life was because she was arguing with him that he wasn't committed enough to their relationship, and she was about to go forth to law enforcement and expose that he was in a relationship with an A minor in the first place. But this is where it gets even darker. These are all videos related to C-sections. C-section surgery, newborn gets gash on face from C-section, what to expect during a C-section. Again, we know from earlier in this video, David did have an affinity towards gore, but this here seems highly specific. A C-section is obviously related to a birth delivery method. What could possibly be intriguing David into watching this type of content unless he had a baby that he was expecting on the way? As you can see with this next video, it has only 608 views. If you know the way YouTube's algorithms work, it's highly unlikely that they would suggest you something that has such a low view count. If this is really David's watch history, it's more than likely that this was a video that he sought out by himself deliberately, not something that just stumbled into his algorithm. And why would he be searching up policies on how to travel with an unaccompanied minor on United Airlines? Well, we know that there's several photographs of Celeste actually even seen with David's family members at several of his shows. We know that she was a runaway, and there's a lot of rumors that she had actually traveled with David to different parts of the world, like London. Maybe this was him possibly trying to obtain instructions on how to bring her on these flights in a legal manner. And there were countless videos that David may have allegedly been watching on YouTube that seemed to be in an attempt to cover his tracks before it was too late. As you can see here, he was watching instruction tutorials on how to erase and factory set his Mac laptop. As recent as 2026, we know that he was only arrested in April of 2026. So these timelines still do add up if this search history of David's YouTube account is really true. It seems in 2024 he may have allegedly also been watching videos on how to delete Instagram chats from both sides, meaning that the person sending the messages and the person receiving the messages, all those messages on Instagram would be cleared. 2024 was of course the year that prosecutors allege David had been manipulating this minor into a relationship with him. The same year he's allegedly looking up how to delete Instagram chats from both his and the recipient's phones. Like I mentioned before, we also know that David was into gore content. He was allegedly searching videos on YouTube about video games that had dismemberment within them. Of course, when Celeste's body was found, it was found dismembered in the front trunk of David's Tesla. He was also allegedly even looking up gore-related video games. And to cover his tracks up even further, David was allegedly also watching videos that instructed you on how to watch your past live streams on Twitch. We know that there was a live stream where David was allegedly with Celeste, where she was talking about R-wording children. And at the end of that live stream, when David was sitting next to what many people believe was actually Celeste, he tells his moderators to delete the entire live stream. And to prove that this person does have access to David's real YouTube accounts, again, this is all alleged, they posted what they claimed to be David's old YouTube channel. Again, he started off by posting video game montages onto YouTube. And you could see here, this is a montage of David allegedly playing Minecraft. And they say, David's childhood channel with a video that he had previously previewed, but this is the video in full. The channel also has a video of him playing the piano as a kid. Now, if all of this is true, it just adds another layer to how deeply disturbing and sad this whole situation is. Not only did David segment different parts of his personality into different settings that he was in, but taking a peek into his own personal search history, allegedly, you find a lot of motive that David may have had for not just committing this act, but for later covering it up. And to me, that's the saddest part of this entire thing, is that so many people around this young child had failed her. She was constantly running away from home into the arms of this famous celebrity. All the while, he may have been online looking up how to get away with abducting a child, dismembering her body, and hiding it from the world. And with the lack of a support system that this child had had, and the status of celebrity that David had, without the workers of that impound lot finding her body in the front trunk of his Tesla due to the sheer smell of her decomposing body, it's very possible that due to David's celebrity and the lack of protection that Celeste had from the people closest to her within her life, the mystery behind her disappearance may have easily never been discovered, let alone solved. As twisted as it is, it's a blessing in disguise that the smell coming from the front trunk of that Tesla ended up ticking off the workers of that impound lot. Because now this case can hopefully get taken to trial and prosecutors can bring justice to Celeste and her family.